Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium of case reports between the 14th to the 19th of April, 2021. Case files number 106 to 111. Case file number 106, written by Headphone Music. His life is exceeding the bounds of rational coincidence. Is this even real? For the past year or so, I've been noticing that things around me don't seem normal anymore. I continue to have this overwhelming sense that everything is fake in a way, or almost dreamlike. I've even kicked around the idea that I may have died already and I'm in a state of purgatory. I recently took my family on a weekend getaway to Seattle. Being a couple hundred miles away from our home in Selah, Washington, it's an easy trip for my wife and I to manage with our two kids, 11-year-old and 4 months old. Over the course of our weekend excursion, I experienced a few things that I found to be odd and left me feeling a bit uneasy. The first occurrence was trivial enough, but it sort of set the tone for the eeriness of the weekend. I was gazing out of the window of our hotel room on the 12th floor, sipping a cup of coffee, when I noticed a plastic bag drifting in the wind. I watched the bag dance around in the air as it slowly descended. A green dumpster 12 stories below caught my eye, and I immediately thought, what if that bag floated all the way down there and landed in that dumpster? I stood at the window for 5 minutes or so, watching this bag slowly float towards the ground, gliding left, right, back and forth. The more I watched the bag, the more confident I became that it would find its way into the dumpster, and it did. This bag that I noticed off in the distance drifted 12 freaking stories and perfectly navigated its way into the dumpster below my building. Later that day, I was in the hotel lobby approaching the elevator to head up to my room. In front of me, there was a man with 2 children waiting for the elevator as well. The man had a guitar case strapped to his back, along with an amplifier and various other bags. His back was to me, and he had a hoodie on. For some reason, I thought to myself, what if it's Ed? Ed was a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in years. We used to work at an Olive Garden together in our younger days. We also played guitar together, and I did a fair amount of partying. Now here's the weird part, and my wife thinks I'm bat crap crazy, but bear with me here. The weird part was how confident I was that this guy was going to turn around and it would be Ed. The same confidence, almost certainty, I would say, that I had in that trash bag flying into the dumpster. The elevator doors opened, and the man and his 2 children walked inside. As the man turned around to enter the floor number on the elevator button console, it should not have been Ed that I recognized, but it was. It was Ed. We were both thrilled to see each other, and even held the door open to chat for a moment, hindering other folks in the process. Even as all this was occurring, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that this isn't real. It's a very difficult thing to describe, but things just don't feel real. Later that evening, my 11-year-old son and I were on the balcony outside our hotel room. He was peering out over the edge when he suddenly whimpered out underneath his breath, "That poor guy." When I asked him who and what he was talking about, he said, "That bumblebee on the ground next to the dumpster. He's dead." We were on the 12th floor, like I mentioned earlier. There's absolutely no way this kid could see a dead bumblebee on the ground floor. Not to mention that the alleged bee was laying next to the dumpster that was the manifested landing zone for the floating trash bag. We argued a bit over whether or not he could see the bee when he finally convinced me to go down and take a look. As we made our way down to the street level, my thought process shifted. That same confidence that I had previously regarding the trash bag and Ed was back. Although I didn't mention it to my son, I was becoming increasingly certain that the bee would be there. And well, it was. It was freaking there, right next to the green dumpster containing the trash sack. The next evening, I took the family to a place called GameWorks, which is similar to Dave & Buster's or an adult version of Chuck E. Cheese. I placed our car keys, wallets, and other important crap all into the diaper bag or backpack, and we carried it onto the establishment. We spent a couple of hours playing games before finally counting our tickets and claiming prizes at the prize booth. We pocketed the prizes and went down the block to the Cheesecake Factory for dinner. After being seated for a few moments, my wife realizes that I do not have the backpack on. The backpack containing all of our money, credit cards, car keys, and not to mention food and supplies for our 4-month-old baby. The bizarre thing is that I have no recollection of ever taking the bag off. Apparently I did because it was gone, but I could have sworn up and down that I never took it off. I immediately go into panic mode, leap up from the table, and take off towards the GameWorks establishment. I run inside and dart around frantically for about a minute or two with the bag nowhere in sight. Finally, I calm down and focus. After breathing and focusing for a moment, I'm greeted with that same confidence that I mentioned before. I was confident that I would not leave the place without my bag. At that moment, a man approached me waving his arms in the air, calling me by my first name. He said, "Here, Cody, I've got your bag, man. Now get back to the Cheesecake Factory and enjoy your dinner." I was awestruck and definitely besides myself at that moment, as I had no clue in hell who this man was or how he knew my name and where I was eating for dinner. I didn't even think to question the man. I reached out, grabbed the bag, and left. This might seem coincidental to a lot of you, but these are just recent examples of how my life unfolds daily. Either I'm a walking conduit of coincidence, or something larger is at play. My wife thinks I'm nuts, but things are definitely not the same as they used to be. I don't know how exactly or why, but they just aren't. Things just don't seem real. Case notes, file number 106. There have been theories that since 2020, the world isn't real. We've been plunged into purgatory. I don't know about that personally. I haven't experienced these strange coincidences as you have, nor do I have this feeling that things aren't real. Your experiences remind me less of purgatory and more like the Truman Show, as if people are observing you outside of real existence, playing with your perception and sanity. If my current leading belief is correct, that we live in a simulation, perhaps you have some troll game mod playing tricks on you as a joke. I'm just trying to put a more positive spin on what is fairly unsettling, I imagine. With all that noted though, you said that these glitches or anomalies, coincidences, they're occurring to you daily. So it's not just about Seattle. If it's not location dependent, I wonder if it's just your perception, or indeed someone is messing with you. Case file number 107, written by O. POTUS. Another sock mystery. Just what's going on with socks? Seriously. This past Christmas, my older sister got me some funny socks that say, "Hide it in my sock." Lost sock randomly appears right when I decided to wash the other sock, since it's been on the floor for a while. It's not my type of humor, but hey, free socks. So after wearing them, I put them in the wash like anyone else. And I know socks have a tendency to go missing to God knows where, so I always try to fold my socks into each other before going into the washer and dryer. All my pairs come out of the washer, still folded into each other. But wait, where the heck is my second sock? I checked the washer, rotated around a couple times to see if it's stuck somewhere inside. I checked the whole laundry load thinking it's in a pant leg or a sweater sleeve. No dice. I checked the washer again, and this time in the rubber seam in between the door and the drum where coins usually build up. Still no second sock. I just blow it off since it's a weird color sock and doesn't really match my wardrobe. After months of having the lonely sock sit on my bed frame just in case the second one pops back up, I decide to add it to my morning laundry load. As I open up my washer, lo and behold, my second "hide it in my sock" is just sitting in the washer drum. I live alone, so I only use the washer and dryer, and I always rotate the drum after every load just to make sure I got everything. How come after months of laundry does my lost sock appear right when I decide to wash the other sock? My mind is blown over a sock. Case notes, file number 107. It's all the timeline builders. They build each minute, second by second, frame by frame. They just forgot your sock all these months, and then you reminded them by putting the other sock back in. No, but really, I have no clue what's happening to these missing items and why they sometimes reappear for us. It's enough to drive us slightly crazy. The universe trying to keep us on our toes, perhaps. Case file number 108, written by Lokendens. A new puppy and a leash defying physics. So this happened about 4 years ago. My family got a new pet dog, Chloe, and she was just a puppy, so it was normal for her to be curious and play around with different things she found. One evening, my family went to the cinema, and I stayed home to work with my computer on a project. I was listening to something on YouTube whilst working, and kept hearing Chloe playing with her leash, as she would usually do. Her bed is about 5 meters in front of my room, about halfway through the corridor. I could hear the jingling of the leash even though the door to my room was closed. I told her to stop a few times, from inside my room, and she did, but in a few minutes it would start again. After a while, it made me lose focus a little. I decided to go and take away the leash and give her a different, more quiet toy. I stood up, still hearing the leash jingling on the floor, opened the door, and saw Chloe laying curled up in her bed like she was trying to sleep. I then looked into the middle of the dark corridor and saw the leash half on the ground and half in the air. From the moment I opened the door, it was already falling to the ground, so when I took my gaze off my dog and was able to focus on the leash, it was already hitting the floor. I panicked a bit, didn't know what I just saw and what to do. I closed the door, barricaded myself inside, moving my wardrobe in front of the door, walked to my computer, and watched some things on YouTube to have my mind occupied on something else. When my family came back, they immediately saw that I was very pale. I told them the story, and interestingly, no one even questioned the reality of it. To this day, I have no idea what I saw. Nothing similar has ever happened in our house. Every time I think back to the situation, I get creeped out a lot. Case notes, file number 108. So it certainly could be a ghost. We know they're able to interact with physical matter, at least to some extent. And while ghosts do typically seem to be attached to places or objects, I don't see why that couldn't apply to a loved one too, such as an adopted puppy. Though I do wonder if this puppy had a previous owner. If not, then it's probably not a ghost. Perhaps instead it was some sort of localized time anomaly, such as those that lock people out of phase with reality. A part of the leash might have been caught in this and the other part wasn't. For a brief moment, they would be out of sync, one falling and one already having fallen. Did you notice anything else odd happening in the past 4 years? The author briefly responded to my question, saying, I didn't see anything odd, and our puppy did not have a previous owner. Case file number 109, written by Mafti. Inexplicably, her daughter vanished. Hey, so this just happened, and I've had an eerie and weird feeling that something is not right. First, let me explain the placement of my house. When you come in, there's a little hall, and in front of you, the bathroom. Then you go left, and you have a small kitchen, then a door. Then it's my bedroom, but it's so big I turned it into a living room, and right next to my bedroom is my daughter's bedroom. Everything is in L shape. I, 24 years, live alone with my daughter, 2 years old, and our 2 pet bunnies. So I had lunch with my daughter, and it started getting cold and dark, so we went to my bedroom and closed the door to the kitchen. She always plays in my bedroom and her bedroom that are directly connected. I was reading some Reddit stories whilst listening to her making her usual noises, talking to herself, singing, asking me something, moving toys around, and the basic children noises. Suddenly the house goes completely silent, and after a few seconds I think that maybe she's being mischievous and doing something she isn't supposed to, like all kids do, so I go check on her since I didn't see her from where I was laying. Let me make it clear that there is no way for her to go outside without opening the creaky door to the kitchen that is right in front of me, and she never tried to do so since the lights in the kitchen are off and she's scared of the dark. So I look everywhere in her bedroom and start calling her name. Nothing. Check her closet, nothing. Under the bed, in her little play tent, in her toy chest, under my bed, the sofa, my desk, everywhere. Nothing. She's nowhere to be seen. Let's mention that she's never tried to hide and stuff like that. She comes when she's called, so I started to freak out. I knew I didn't hear her leave my bedroom to the kitchen, but I checked anyways. Nothing. The bathroom, empty. Now I'm starting to panic. I go inside and check everything over, and while I'm in her bedroom, I hear crying from outside and look through my daughter's window to see her outside laying on the ground only wearing a t-shirt. Not the t-shirt she was previously wearing, but one of the t-shirts she does have. I ran outside almost falling over, but when I opened the door, silence. She wasn't there. There was no crying, just silence again. I go outside and check everything and can't find her or any trace of her being there. Defeated, I go back upstairs ready to call 911 when I go to my bedroom and see her calmly playing with some blocks in her bedroom. She was wearing her clothes as if she never disappeared. The t-shirt I saw her wearing outside was in her wardrobe, neatly folded. I'm still in shock and sitting staring at my daughter, feeling that if I blink, she might disappear again. Case notes, file number 109. I don't personally have kids, so I really can't empathize directly with the panic you must have felt, but I can try to imagine it, and it's not something pleasant. This glitch reminds me of so many others. There was one where his girlfriend vanished from a bathroom he saw her enter, and no windows inside. Then she appeared outside a few minutes later. There are other glitches where everything goes quiet and the world is empty, no people at all. Perhaps this is what happened to you. You temporarily entered into a dead universe or server. It really is wild, and I have no idea what triggers that to happen. At least for you, it didn't last long, if that's indeed what happened. Sometimes it can last for hours. Although given your daughter was there, but wearing something different, perhaps it was just a temporary crossover into a different universe, and not a dead one completely. Case file number 110. Written by Thanos' communist wife. She knew this kid from class. No one remembers from where. I got a new teaching job after being unemployed since last November, as my previous school went out of business. I've only worked at 4 schools in my entire adult life. I walk in on my first day, and I spot a student from the previous school that I already knew. I ran up to her and gave her a big hug. Then another student yells, "Miss Thanos' communist wife!" I yell back, "Oh my god, Bob?" Bob, obviously not his real name. We're all hugging. It's wonderful. A regular Hallmark moment. Fast forward, my boss goes, "You know Bob? How do you know Bob?" I said I taught him at my last school. My boss goes, "Really? Because I told Bob's parents how excited he was to see you, and they said he's never been to that school." So I'm thinking and thinking. I get home and start looking back at school photos. Photos I took on my iPhone, class photos, and this boy isn't in any of them. I text some former coworkers that I keep in touch with from all the schools. Not only do they not know Bob, they've never had anyone named Bob as a student. It's been a week since that incident, and me and his parents and my boss are still trying to figure this out. His parents even asked him where he knows me from, and he says, "I don't know, I just do." He's 4, so that's an appropriate response. My conspiracy theory is, maybe we met in a past life. Or maybe alternate versions of ourselves have met and it's trickling down into our version. Case notes, file number 110. So yes, a crossover event can produce effects like this. Differences between realities, often very subtle. But the fact that Bob does remember you as well, that points to this not being a crossover. Instead, it's like both of your senses are aligned and attuned to perceive the fact that you know each other but in other universes, without crossing over. Like you said, a sort of trickle-down effect of knowledge, almost a sort of sixth sense. Fascinating. Case file number 111. Written by Jackfruit Rude. At some point in their lengthy timeline together, they diverged. At some point, I separated from the version that my friend and wife are in. Last night, I was over at my friend's house. we'll call her Amber, and we were chatting about family and growing up differently. She mentioned how she'd been cooking for her family since she was 8 years old, and when she was 14, she worked for a catering company and loved it. She said that she thought she was going to go to culinary school. I said, "But you did go to culinary school," and she said she hadn't. But I have several distinct memories of us talking about her going to culinary school. I reminded her of the time my wife and I had dinner at her place. Amber said she would cook and would make a stir-fry. All of this she remembers too. When we got to her place, I was so impressed because she had a kitchen cabinet full of cookware and spices. We were young and no one I knew had a kitchen so well stocked. When I made a comment on it, she said, "Well, yeah, I went to culinary school after all." And we've had multiple conversations like this since. It's one of the first things I knew about her, so we've talked about it throughout our entire 3-year friendship. But when I recounted this story to her last night, she said that the last part wasn't true and that she never went to culinary school. She had never even taken a class or anything. We just stared at each other, shocked and a little speechless. And then I told her we must be from different versions of reality. She said she'd always wanted to go to culinary school, but never did. And I told her that somewhere another Amber that I knew went to culinary school. I think that's pretty poetic and beautiful in a way. When I got home, I asked my wife if she remembers Amber going to culinary school, and she said no right away. I recounted the whole conversation for her, and she still said no. But she and I had had a lot of similar experiences with each other, so I'm not really surprised. I'm going to start writing things down when I learn about a new person so that I can refer back to it. Has anyone else had a similar experience? Case notes, file number 111. This makes me think of the Mandela effect, only applied to a personal memory of a friend's life. There isn't too much that can mess with our brains more than feeling out of sync with reality, at least personally. When we know that X should actually be Y, and in your case that your friend took a life path that she ended up not taking, but you know she did. The most likely cause is a crossover. I think we all know the drill, the feature of the universe that evades the scientific method, because how would you test and observe this? But it is one that I do believe is true, just by all the accounts. So you're probably in a different universe altogether. On a side note, a show I'd recommend that touches on such crossovers is Counterpart, with J.K. Simmons. Excellent acting. I highly recommend it if you're into science fiction and these kind of crossover thought experiments. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and head on to my channel to watch even more stories.